Yeah, just make sure that's working, and then we can be good. Yeah, wicked. Right. So, I'll just drop a message in Discord as well. Cool. So, I have some stuff to show today. So, as you may know, if you've been following my Discord and my YouTube and various other socials, I've been running a factions server for a small while now, a couple of months. We had it up, well, initially running from the start of the year around January, and then from February onwards we've been out of beta. So yeah, I've been experimenting with factions plugins and factions mods for quite a while, trying different options, seeing what's out there, using some plugins from SpongeForge and some mods from that just are made with WarForge. And none of them have been quite what I wanted or been well supported enough. The Forge one doesn't seem to have that much of a user base, so I had some issues, didn't seem like fully supported, wasn't actively maintained. And the SpongeForge one was alright, but ultimately I couldn't have that much control of it, and I couldn't sort of tweak it or make new features for it. So I've been looking to get something that I can fiddle with a bit more, and that I can work on to make it into a very unique experience for the server. That said, I am making it into a separate mod that I will probably have will release on CurseForge, so anyone can use it. That is yet to be seen. I haven't got to that point yet. So yes, today I just wanted to show off some sort of updates about like where we are, how it's going. So yeah, if you're on the faction server, this is what we're going to be using come sort of probably 2 or 3 weeks from now. It still needs finishing off and finalising. But yeah, I just wanted to show off what we've got so far, and then I might do some I'm probably going to come across a bug or two while testing, because it is still in development, and so I might do some live bug fixing. We'll just see how it goes. So let's get stuck in. Right. I'm just starting in single player. I'll start a new test world. Stream world. Creative just for testing. And I will boot another instance so we can have two players in the game, which, because we're doing factions, is quite a useful thing to do. It's also something I've not tested all that much yet, because obviously, like the way development works with mods, you generally end up doing the single player test case first, because you only have to boot one Minecraft, you have to connect them together. It covers most cases. So yeah, I've generally been testing single player thus far, and will be testing. So my multiplayer testing, I've done that a bit, but it's not sort of, I haven't done that much yet. That is interesting. I haven't seen a ocean recently. I'll show that in a minute. There's some world generation that this mod adds. So if we start a creative world. I hope this is an okay setup for the stream with side by side. I know it's like a very awkward aspect ratio for Minecraft to have, but I hope that doesn't matter too much. So first thing you notice is these blobs underground. Now, this is something I haven't seen. I haven't seen how the mod was interacting with ocean biomes up until now. So I guess that's it. Like every time you make a new world, you'll see something. You might see a new bug or something new. So these, if I just zoom, oh, there's one here. If I go and have a look, can I do night vision underwater? Yeah, there we go. This looks like a big old vein of iron ore, but it also has these blocks in the middle. My little mouse buttons are broken, so I can't show you that like that. I'm going to go and search it. Right. So, dense iron ore, and dense gold ore, and also dense diamond, but that's a slightly different setup. They spawn in these veins like this, with lots of regular blocks. So if you find one of these, you can still get plenty of iron just by mining. That's totally fine. Yeah, but the dense blocks in the middle, so these ones, they look like this. they can't be broken in survival. If I just get myself a pickaxe and then switch back, you can't break that. So you might wonder, what's the point in a dense iron block that I can't even break? The idea with all of this is that I'm trying to make factions have a bit more of a tie to the land that they're on. So if you settle in a particular spot, you you want to almost have a reason to pick a certain spot over another based on the resources that you find there. So you might, like, I know it's all sort of revealed at the moment because of the ocean, but I might sort of think, oh, there's iron there, and there's quite a few iron nodes together here, so I could set up a base, like a citadel here to start my faction off, and then claim these extra chunks. So it makes you think a little bit about what you're claiming, where and why. Basically, I want to encourage decision making in the positioning of your faction, and to make people. I want people to be fighting over resources as well. So that's the general idea there. Next up, I'm going to show you some of the blocks in the mod. So you'll see there's this overlay that appears whenever you hold one of these plain blocks. I think I might actually just make this hot full screen for the moment because we're not going to do any sort of multiplayer stuff just yet. Something I wanted to do with this, because I'm making a Forge factions mod, what I have access to, which a lot of server plugin developers don't have access to, is client-side blocks and features. So, custom rendering for overlays, stuff like that. Basically, I couldn't render these green squares if I were making a server plugin for Bucket or Sponge or whatever, because that feature doesn't exist in vanilla Minecraft. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm using lots of things I couldn't do otherwise, just make good use of being a Forge mod. So that means I can also be a little bit more physical with the stuff that we place. So rather than doing /f create/f claim, I can have it tied to a block. So I will, for example, take the citadel block and I'll place it here. So this chunk now has a citadel in it, which means I can't place any other block in that chunk. So it's a limit of one of these blocks: a citadel, a claim, a reinforced claim, which is something I'm just experimenting with. It's harder to take, and a siege camp, which is how you do attacking in this mod. So you can only have one of these per chunk, and it gives you this handy placement overlay to tell you whether you can or can't place that there. Now I won't be able to place any more right now because I'm not actually in a faction. So when you place the citadel, that's now an unclaimed citadel, but it is marked as yours. So it remembers who placed it and no one else can go and use it. So you're safe if you put it down and you haven't chosen your faction name or whatever, you can come back to it. Now, if you right click on it, you get this screen. There's a lot of, there's a couple bits of information missing. There's supposed to be a title here saying like unclaimed citadel, which will then be like citadel of your faction name. We'll come to all of this stuff in a minute, but when you first click on it, you will have this create button, and then you create the faction with the name that you want. So I might call this Twitchville and create that. So I have become the leader of Twitchville. So it's like doing /f create, but more physical, and the faction is now tied to this block. So this is my home, this chunk here, and I can't move that. So once you've claimed it, once you've staked your claim and said this is the home of our faction, that is set in stone. There might be some way of changing it later, but for now, like version 1, it will be set your citadel down. If you want to move somewhere else, you have to create a new faction, just to make sure people are making good, solid decisions about where they want to live, and not just sort of packing up camp constantly. So yeah, you place your citadel claim, and then you can place additional claims like this with just extra blocks. So the recipes for these it's going to be quite tough to get the balance exactly right on these extended claims. Oh, also I just should mention that these textures and them looking like beacons, it's not final. It's just what I've got for the moment. So yeah, they may change. They might be multi-block structures. Not sure yet. But yeah, I can claim new chunks with these basic claims, and I can place reinforced claims as well, which are just stronger when somebody tries to siege them. So you will also notice probably that there is an overlay over the whole chunk. So this is a handy way of showing where people's bases are. So I do want factions to be public. I mean, when they're sort of eventually I'll probably put all of this in config options. So if you want to use the mod but you don't want the overlays, that will probably be a config option. But the idea here is that it shows, it's a little bit like boundaries in like Civilization or Age of Empires. Not Age of Empires doesn't have boundaries, but like a real-time strategy game or a 4x sort of a game where you actually own territory and control it. So that's kind of what I'm going for here, because that is what factions is all about: is controlling territory and having it protected. So yeah, part of this is, let's make it actually show up rather than having to do /f map and see a thing in the chat window all the time. You can approach an area, see some sort of territory claims, and then you'll be like, oh hey, there's a faction over there, I'll go and have a look. And just wanted to show, if you go far away, they go up to world height. Just so as you're approaching from a distance, you will see them like this. You'll see, I think I'm potentially going to tweak some of the values about like how high they go and how far away you have to be before they do it, but then they sort of all slot into place as you approach. So as you go through the world, you'll see these appear in the sky, and then as you get closer, it will sort of hone in on exactly where the enemy base is. So yeah, the rendering could do with a little bit of work. I want to get rid of these middle lines, so it's just renders the outer edge. So this edge here, but not the crisscross bit in the middle. But yeah, that does require a little bit more thought, because you have, rather than this. So it's all based on these blocks, because you know that one of these, there's one claim per chunk, and it contains the data about what claim has been made. But if you want to sort of do the fancy edges, then you have to sort of take this one and see, oh, is there one on that one? It's like you have to start looking for other blocks. But it's something that's on my list. So yeah, hopefully we can make that look a little bit tidier. But that's generally the idea: is you'll see people's claims from the air as you arrive. So, another thing that's been going on is that the chat has been a little bit spammed, because there are some more reward systems and offline engagement systems. So, I've been struggling with the idea of, I think factions plugins generally struggle with like offline versus online, and so I've been trying to sort of balance that and balance it with these yields and balance it with sieges and stuff. So I'll explain it as like bit by bit. So the first thing is that you get passive yields every, I'm going to say day in inverted commas, because the day is defined by the server config. So I've currently got it set to something like just under a minute. I think it's 40 seconds. That's because I want to show off what's going on. I mean, I've been using this all day like this for my own testing, because I want to test it quite rapidly, and I'm using it now to show you how it works. But in general, what I have set the defaults to, and what I would suggest, is yields happen once per hour, and that's real life hour, not Minecraft hour, but only if somebody's been online in that time period. The online effect is for the sieges. But yes, basically, if you've been online, forget the being online. Passive yields apply every, should be real life hour. So that will happen even if you're offline. So if you come back the next day and you've been sort of 22 hours since you were last logged on, you will get 22 instances of yields appearing in your blocks. And what that looks like is, I need to not be holding another block. So if you click on this, you'll see you have a yield. And this is just filled up with either ore or ingots or diamonds. What appears depends on, again, sort of server configs. So you can tweak it if you want to have these create ingots, or if you want them to create ores. It's entirely up to the server owner what they want to do. They shouldn't be doing a mix. That's definitely not correct. Huh? Well, now I'm confused because there's no way they should. Some of them be doing ingots and some of them be doing iron ore. They should all be identical. Anyway, something weird's happening there. But so you can tell, you can sort of see the yields filling up. You can kind of tell just how much stuff is under each one from what's appeared. So these yields, I should probably sort of go into the yields a bit more, are based on these blocks, the densors. Just turn off the day. Okay. So if I put loads of these gold blocks down, it might actually recalculate it. I don't know if it will do that live. We'll just see next time the yields come and see if it actually adds any gold. But basically, if I were to do this, for example, if I were to let's just test. No, I don't think it's updated. But basically, this block searches the whole chunk that it's in for every dense iron, dense gold, and dense diamond ore block. I think it might not check over 64 in terms of height, so that might be why it didn't actually, the gold didn't show up in the yield. But it checks for all of those, and it doesn't give you one per block because that would be kind of crazy, and I wanted these to be nice big nodes that are quite easy to find. So it takes the total number of ore nodes, of dense ore nodes, it multiplies it by an internal multiplier, which is something quite small. So you might get sort of 0.1 ingot per gold block per hour, because of course you have to sort of remember that adds up quite quickly. If I could drop down a claim, then suddenly I've got access to, say there's a 10 block vein, then I'm getting an ingot per hour, and I come back the next day and I've got 24 ingots for free. So numbers are still to be tweaked, and they will probably be on the lower side rather than the higher side. So yeah, every time, let's just see if some diamonds appeared. So a diamond appeared. So out from 5, so I'm just saying, because this doesn't count any blocks above 64 or above, I think. It's only counting these 5. But it's counting those 5, saying, hey, that's 0.1 each, and then it rounds up to the nearest whole number, so it creates 1 diamond every time period, which should be a full real life hour, but is currently so it's under a minute, I think. But that's the general idea with the yields. So you want to make claims in places with good resources underground. You may have noticed that this diamond block is stuffed in bedrock, so it's like diamonds encrusted in bedrock. These spawn a little bit differently to the gold and iron. They only spawn in the bottom like 0 to 8 layers of the world. Basically these replace bedrock blocks, and then you have diamond ore above. Actually, I think we could potentially go down and have a look. Is that going to be low enough? Yeah. Because I think they will show through. There we go. So there we go. For example, you can see this, and as with the iron and the gold, you get a lot of extra spawns around. Should be diamond ore in the rock. It might be quite a I think it was quite a low chance of it too, but generally speaking there will be some. I just got rid of a potion of night vision in order to place a torch in my hand. That was not a sensible move. Okay, this one hasn't spawned any. I think it's quite a low chance of actually spawning diamond ore. I might tweak that up a little bit. Oh, there we go. So you'll get these sort of lonely diamond ores. I think it's currently like 1 in 10 chance of replacing a block, so it's perhaps a little bit low, but the idea is you'll see some regular ores you can have straight away, and they'll be like, oh hey, this is a good place to set down a claim because there's lots of this sort of passive diamond income. But then of course, if you start collecting that income and other people catch on that you've got this good diamond income, which I will probably make sure is publicised somewhere. I'll talk about that in a moment. Other players will be like, oh wow, I could get in on that diamond, and then they'll come and attack you and start trying to take out your claims and claim it for themselves. So that's the general idea there. So yeah, passive claims, it's a cool way to get resources just for playing, and it it's also like something for people to fight over. Um, so that's that general idea. I think regarding the mod pack for the server, there will probably have to be no ore doubling systems in place. So no tinkers, no industrial craft, whatever. Just because it's going to make it a bit more. Like I want to make sure that these passive yields are valuable, so I don't want to have it like there being far too much iron and gold in the economy already. I was considering doing something like finding a great oak tree, like a really big old tree, and it being like it's an ancient tree, so it's unbreakable, but it gives you the passive yield of wood. So it's not just restricted to ores, it could be other things as well. But yeah, we've got ores for now, and that's probably all there will be in the first version of this, so that's the general gist of it. I'll go quickly into... Oh, let's just do the faction info as well first, but then I'll go into sieging. I'll just explain my other plans for it, because I've got a few other things planned that aren't in yet, so I'll just go over those as well. So you may have noticed we've got the yields here, which just come out from the chunk, and there's given to you over time. You can actually store stuff in here, which I'm not sure you should be able to do, but yeah, I'm not sure about that, because that's an inaccessible sort of container, so anyone from another faction can't access that. I'll just show that actually. So if I, another player, come along and I click on this block, all I get is the info panel. So, ooh, a crash. That was working last time I pressed it, but yeah, you get the info panel if you come in as someone else who is not a member of that faction. The only thing you can do is look at the information for that faction. Yeah, you can also, if you are the owner of it, you can look at info at any time. There'll be a /f info command as well, so all these things will be sort of... I'm trying to make it better than the original factions plugin, so I don't want people to be like typing /f something and getting nothing. So like /f create obviously won't work because you have to place this as a block, but it will give you a piece of some sort of information snippet in the chat saying you need to craft this block. You might even say the recipe. So I'm kind of trying to make sure it's people who've played with the original like plugin factions know where to go and get the right clues to get the right stuff going. So that's the general idea. You probably will be able to do /f info for your own faction or /f info name of faction for another one. So yeah, that will be allowed. Oh yeah, so on your that's not correct. Oh right, okay. So yeah, the menu's not entirely done yet. There's a banner slot in. It's only in the Citadel block. It's a Citadel specific thing. If I grab can I get a banner? Yeah. If I get a banner and I place it in here, what's going on there? Again, like I said, it's all work in progress. But basically, if you put a banner in there, that becomes the banner of your faction. And the idea is it will be anywhere that your faction information shows up or faction leaderboards, your banner should show up in some shape or form. So I'm going to put that there, and it should. You can see it appear for a moment. I'm not sure why it disappears, but it's supposed to appear over the Citadel. So, oh, and the other thing that I'm planning to do is have it so that any banners placed in this area match the pattern on there. So all you need to do is craft one banner with the patterns that you get. It's basically use the vanilla Minecraft way of making banners, and then if you place a banner in your area, then it will take it will copy all the colours from here. So that's the general idea. It means you can sort of duplicate a cool design now to keep making it repeatedly. Sorry, I got distracted by banners. That's the thing that's planned. Should also, the base colour of the banner should set your faction's base colour as well, so the colour that's used on the sky rendering, that sort of thing. But yeah, this isn't really fully working yet, but I think some of these do work. I'll at least explain what the different categories are, because one of the other things I want to do is to have quite a good sort of leaderboard system. So I was trying to work on a leaderboard system for the faction server, but it wasn't very good. It was sort of shoehorned in, and you couldn't actually find out who was on the leaderboard. It wasn't publicly displayed anyway. You had to type /f leaderboard top whatever. So one of the things I want to do is have at spawn, or like, well, not necessarily at spawn, but basically add a block that server admins can place, which gives you access. Basically, right click on it, and it gives you the faction top leaderboard, and it also might have some sort of text display on the outside of it, some special rendering. So like a banner with like, here's number 1, number 2, number 3, the top, wealthiest factions, the most notorious factions, and then overall like combined stats, best factions. So I'm just going to show you the, for one example, how to increase your faction's wealth. Basically, it's quite simple. Every gold block you place in the chunk around your citadel counts towards your faction's wealth. So I've got a wealth of 4 now. The leaderboards are one of the things I haven't done yet, so those will work at some point, and they'll be nice and shiny and gold and silver and bronze if you have achieved sort of your top 1, 2, or 3 on the server. So that will say like you're the 3rd best faction for wealth, the top faction for legacy, and overall when you add all these 3 values together you are number whatever. So basically you can fill out your citadel chunk with stuff, and that sort of allows you to go up on the wealth leaderboard. Obviously, the more blocks you place in the wild, the more vulnerable your loot is to other people coming along and stealing it. So if they manage to successfully siege your citadel, and then they can take all those blocks from you. It's also configurable, so you can put in any block name you like. So you could, and multiple block names in fact. So you could say it's number of gold blocks plus number of diamond blocks. It doesn't have scaling at the moment, so like you can have diamond block is worth 3 times as much as a gold block, but potentially if that's something that would be good, that could happen. And it does support modded blocks as well. Basically, if you can name it using an identifier, then it, in theory, can work for this system. So that's the general idea for wealth. So if you want to become the wealthiest faction, you just fill your citadel with valuable items. There are 2 other stats, notoriety and legacy. Legacy, I think I was implementing this afternoon but didn't quite finish. Legacy is how long the faction has existed, effectively. So each day the legacy stat goes up by 1. These might have to be tweaked just so that they are balanced against each other. As in, like, wealth, you could very easily get to like hundreds. So I do want to make sure that legacy and notoriety are on the same kind of number scale, so they don't just sort of completely get ousted by wealth, for example. So legacy is how many days your faction has been around, but that's days where somebody has been online. So just if one player from your faction logs in a 24-hour period, that counts as like your faction was active that day. And I don't want to put sort of pressure on people to just log in for the sake of it, but I think that's a sort of fair way of sort of judging like most active faction. So I mean, let me know in the comments, especially on the YouTube upload. Let me know in the comments if you have any thoughts on that, like whether that's sort of a bit too sort of, I don't want to say toxic, but like I kind of don't want to be forcing people to log in when that's not convenient for them. So yeah, let me know how you feel about that. But the idea would be, if you basically, the oldest factions have the highest legacy, but there is a big catch to that. You can't, if your faction citadel is taken in a siege, your faction is deleted, it's gone. So there'll be some sort of like historic leaderboard of every faction that's ever been around, like who was the top of all time. But generally speaking, if your citadel is gone, your faction is removed and you are all kicked out and you are all factionless. So what you might do then is say, oh, we got beaten, let's fight back, let's do it again. So you might remake your faction, call it something else, or you could even sort of call it Twitchville 2, the successor, and then you can place a new citadel claim somewhere else. But the idea is you are tied to your sort of original spot, pending like maybe some sort of expensive way of moving your citadel, but like generally speaking, if your initial spot is taken and successfully sieged, then you have to move away and reform somewhere else. So you've lost your legacy because you were defeated, and then you had to sort of start from scratch. So that should be self-balancing in that people who want to win on the legacy will have to take down other people ahead of them. So if you want to be the number one oldest surviving faction, you have to go and oust all the others, and all the others will be sort of available to, like, you can see where all the citadels are. So players will have to defend their title. They'll have to build defences on their land, rather than sort of just existing in perpetuity. So that's generally how that works. That's legacy, and then notoriety is the sort of combat, how good you are at raiding, and how good you are at defending stat. So every time you win a siege, you gain a notoriety. Every time you successfully defend a siege, you gain a notoriety. And that's pretty much it. I am aware that does lead to problems of potential exploiting with pairs of factions teaming up, so I'm going to have to look into that. It might be, I don't want to say it's going to be trust-based, but like it could either be a server rule, or like long-term could look into something where it's like a checklist, as in you get a point for every faction that you have successfully sieged against, and you get a point for every faction you successfully defended against, and you can't get the same faction twice, so it's more of a nuisance to farm it, but we'll see. Basically this is all quite early, and the numbers need balancing, and there will potentially be some, I don't want to say exploits, but like some things might be, okay, yeah, there might be some exploits. That's fair. So yeah, I don't know yet until I see it getting played with. So the first plan will be a very private server, just a couple of people testing it out, making a couple of factions, fight each other out, and get a nice big bug list, and then hopefully a few iterations down the line it'll be ready to go on the faction server, or a faction server beta. And yeah, hopefully it'll be pretty good at that point. What else do I need to show? Oh, sieging. Yes, sieging is quite important. So I need my other player to make another faction. Is it still open? Yeah. So once I've got two factions in the game, then I can show you how a siege works. Now, this again, like the let's grab some basic stuff. Like the yields timer, I've got it set very low because I'm just testing everything right now. So so don't expect any of this to be final. So my factions come up as blue as the default colour. You get a randomly assigned default colour just so it can show up on the map, and then you can pick and change your default colour later. Yeah, I've got this going on. I've got this faction set up. Basically, there is a timer for the sieges that triggers once every, it should trigger once every 24 real hours, which is when sieges advance. So, for example, if I go and siege, so I want to siege this tile here, I want to take it over. So, in order to attack this tile, I have to place a siege camp in an adjacent tile. So, an immediate problem you might notice with this is that, say this player, actually I could probably just set this up right now. This is quite fun to do both at once. If I just claim a few more tiles, like this, and this. Right, you may notice that the citadel of this faction, if I just drop down, so the citadel in the middle there, where the player is, can't currently be sieged because there is no adjacent empty square, empty chunk that isn't claimed, so you can't place a siege camp just to siege it. So what you have to do in this sort of situation is take your sieges step by step at a time. So it does mean that when you've put in the resources to claim a large area, it does take other players longer to push through and claim it, and sort of to push the war through and take it sort of step by step. So, for example, here I have this very temporary interface where it shows me so it's basically the faction color of each direction. I need to improve this. It needs to have names, etc. But basically, it's sort of saying on the west there is pink, which is that one there. I figured with this, it's not a high priority to get this done because you can see it in real life, and you can also F3 for the directions. You can see the facing is west there. So it's very simple. Attack west. That means I've started a siege. It should have displayed the bar. There is a siege progress bar which will appear. I think it might appear when the daily siege timer advances. Oh, here we go. So there are a few things that influence sieges. I haven't actually tested some of them, so this could be interesting. But so adjacent siege camps will help take a thing faster. So if I were to place a siege camp over here, oh my gosh, this is terrifying because I haven't actually tested this one specifically. If I place a siege camp here, that should, I think it might be next time it updates. I need to make sure this is updating every time things change, but yeah, this siege setup here should have an extra notch at the top. So I hope everyone's seeing the notches at the top of the screen with the siege progress bar. It should go up another notch towards a blue victory because there's now 2 siege camps adjacent. So that means that more exposed sort of edge chunks are easier to take. So if you place a claim in the middle of nowhere and don't surround it with any other claims, somebody could come along and put 4 siege camps around it, and they've already moved up 3 notches. So basic plus 3 extra sides. So you don't get like a free notch, but as you place extra siege camps, you do push the siege further towards victory. They're also on the flip side, they are also reinforced by adjacent claims. So this one here, this claim in the middle, has on 3 sides it has an adjacent claim, and this one's a citadel. So each of those gives a supporting power. So this siege will start off with a it will be pushed more towards a pink defense victory. So you can't just go in and attack at the heart of the country. You have to start picking things off. Basically, you have to make tactical decisions about where you think you can make a solid push, and you have to take into account various things like neighbouring tiles and sort of the layout of the land and stuff. So it's a little bit more tactical. It's not super complicated and tactical, but it's just like there's a bit more going on, and you do have to think about where's best to attack. So as you can see now, this bar at the top of the screen shows how this siege is going. I'm implementing limits at the moment, so you can only have so many sieges going on at once. You can't just siege every single tile at once. That might be each player can have a siege in progress. So if you bring 3 players to the fight, you can siege 3 different tiles. There's going to be some sort of limit like that, and I do at some point need to make it sort of beneficial to have more players in your faction so that everyone's not soloing. But yeah, there'll be something like that to limit the number of sieges you can start with at once. So yeah, siege progress is influenced by having extra adjacent sieges and its chunks are supported. Oh yeah, it has updated now because it's gone up by 2. So it's recalculated and it's realised, oh hey, there's 2 siege camps, so that's a base of +1, and then that's one of the other things that happens is every day a siege pushes towards the attackers. Just it's a sort of the idea is that the defenders are running out of supplies. I know that's not exactly what's happening, but like this player might not be logged on. They're not necessarily running out of supplies. They might have a huge bread factory, but the idea is that sort of the attrition from having this camp here for long enough does push against this one. So that chat message that just came up, the siege has progressed by 1 point. That happens every day. And by day, I mean it's a defined period in the config. In this case, it is in the default case is 24 hours. So for me to just set up a siege camp and leave it going, I would have to leave it for 5 days to complete. If I just put it there and I left and I logged out, that's how long it would take. There are other things that modify it. So if no one from the defending team is logged in for a whole 24 hours, then that gets an extra point towards the attackers, and the same goes for the attackers. So if I place a claim and I log out, then it's not going to finish. if I place a siege camp and then I log out for a week, it won't do anything because it might sort of push its attrition once per day, but at the same time, if the other player's logging in, they're pushing back against it just by being present. And so, yeah, you need to make sure that you are online a little bit just to make sure you're sort of keeping it active. So yeah, that's the sort of general basics. And then, obviously, you've got to have player versus player combat. This is factions after all. So if you want to really speed this up, what you can do is start hunting. So I'm going to just do it, I'm just going to game mode, give us each a diamond sword, game mode naught, and game rule, oh no, don't do that, keep inventory, true, and I'll give you a diamond sword as well. This is quite fun. This is classic multiplayer development, is hopping back and forth between two different instances. So now I can kill with keep inventory. So if I go and kill I'm the defender, I'm on pink. Left screen is pink. Twitchville, they're defending against blue, the testing faction, so I'm going to kill them. And that has pushed it back a notch. So you can see, at the exact same time, the timer goes back. The timer is triggered. So it says here, your death has shifted the siege progress by 1. So I think that's supposed to be a message for both players, but yeah. In general, if you kill someone, and it has to be in the chunk where the siege is happening, or up to 2 chunks away, again, a configurable statistic, which you can set with the server config. But if I keep killing, I can push it back towards a successful defense, at which point the siege will end and nothing will happen. So, alright, just going to kill one at a time. And currently this is all set up to be like plus 1 point for this, minus 1 point for that. It's all sort of just set up quite basically. All of this is configurable, and you can use fractions, decimal points, for any of these values. So you've got a lot of control as server owner running this this mod, about like how you want the balance to work and how you want things to be valued. So if you really want PvP to be the killer, the thing that swings combat and things, you can set it that way on your server. So that's the general idea of it. I've also got, I think it changes colour based on which way it's moving. So, but if it's negative, it goes pink. If it's positive, it goes blue. Because you're sort of, this is the 0 point, and then it's moving towards a successful defense or moving towards a successful victory. No matter what happens, this siege camp, the resources for it will be lost. That's the general, the cost of making a siege, and if you lose the siege, then you've lost those resources. It's a sort of a fair way of saying you tried but you failed, so you can't just keep spamming. You can't get your siege camp back and just plonk it down again, because then it will just never stop. So yeah, your siege camp is lost when it's placed. It never drops anything. If you were to successfully win a siege, I feel like that's going to take ages now. That I'm 7 kills away. Maybe I could just kill that person. It's going to take ages. I'll just explain what happens. If you do win, then that claim is deleted, and then you're free to go and claim it. Again, probably going to be a config option, whether it's just deleted or whether it's it gets replaced with a claim by you. I think that probably would make more sense. Yeah, we'll see. That's most of it. Oh, this actually, I've just realised that's a reinforced claim block. So reinforced claim blocks aren't working because that should have 10 notches to break through. A successful attack should take longer on a reinforced claim. It's just a harder recipe. That's the only thing that's going on there, but it does mean that you have a chance to sort of invest more resources if you really want to protect your claims, and then every claim that's using a reinforced block is harder to break into. But yeah, that's kind of it, I think. What else have I got going on? I think that's most of what we've got. There are some F commands. I doubt that works. Oh, okay. /F is still under construction. It will do some things, but also it says craft assisted of creative faction. What have we got in here? So there's some stuff still to do. F time. That's the one I wanted to show off. So you can at any time you can just do /F time. So it tells you exactly how long it will be until the next yield and until the next siege progress. Not in the correct format, it seems. That needs some extra formatting work. I hope this has been interesting. I know this is like quite a sort of early progress update, and it's definitely not finished. And I know it might feel like I've sort of abandoned the faction server for the moment, but be rest assured this is what I'm doing instead, is preparing something really cool for the whole server to enjoy. So factions, I guess we had beta and then release. So factions 2.0, faction server 2.0 will be very cool once this is all up and running and balanced and free of bugs. But yeah, that's kind of it, I think. I don't think I've got much else. Just check on my to-do list, see if there's anything else that I've got planned that's pretty exciting I could share. I haven't done the grief prevention, so obviously a key part of factions is preventing other players from breaking your blocks in your area, and you need to do that, but that should be quite simple. And one thing that I've always had difficulties with is making interact with mods and interacting with Flansmod as well. So given that this isn't a part of Flansmod, but it is a sort of, I'm developing both of them, and I have the source code. I've got both of the projects right next to each other, so I can just hook it into Flansmod for damage prevention purposes quite easily. So hopefully that will work a little bit better than the options we've used in the past. I think basically the other things for the mod are leaderboards /F top, and also I want to have some admin placeable leaderboard blocks. So when you go to the spawn, rather than a sign that automatically populates its text, there's an actual sort of distinct block that looks cool, and it has text printed on it that says number 1 faction on wealth, etc. And it just has like a different leaderboard for each of the different categories, and then an overall one as well. And so that's the first thing you see when you enter, is like, this is the top faction, because I think it's important to sort of show off the people who've invested time in it, and the people who are sort of proud of their faction that they've built up, and give people a good reason to hit the top of those leaderboards, because everyone can see this is the best faction, and it's just very visible in spawn. So a custom leaderboard block, definitely something I want to have going. There's just a lot of sort of extra little things to do. I haven't got notoriety set up yet. I think basically it's all coming together quite nicely. I've been doing this for about 2 weeks now. I just need like another week or two to get it sort of fully polished and ready to go, and do some testing. Multiplayer testing specifically is going to be quite intense. There's something else I can't remember. But yeah, I'm just going to I'm signing off slowly. I'm going to leave it here. Basically, let me know what you think. I mean, I'm interested to see how people take this, how they feel it's going to sort of affect the faction server, whether they're excited to play with it. Just general thoughts on it. Any questions as well, just let me know. Like I said, this is going to be uploaded on YouTube straight away afterwards, so yeah, good place to work to post stuff. I was just going to say another thing about the faction server. I am reworking the mod pack alongside this. Once this is done, you can see, because of the world generation and the way it works, we're going to have another world reset. I will post a message about that in factions, because this is kind of at the end of a long 50-minute video, so that's a bit sneaky. But yes, there will eventually be a map reset once this is all finished, but that will be probably up to a month away, I'd say. So yeah, that's coming up. And one of the other things I wanted to sort of just say or mention was basically it's another thing that I've been thinking about doing, but it's a separate mod really. I need to find some way of preventing shulker boxes from going inside ender chests. So a little bit controversial is the use of /f chest, which in other faction plugins gives you like an ender chest, but for the whole faction that's shared between all the members. Some people like it, but I feel like it's just sort of destroyed the potential for raiding in factions. So on the current faction server, I think all the big factions, my faction included, have their entire base and their entire wealth loaded into diamond shulker boxes in their ender chest or their faction chest. So it's not great because you can't, like, going to attack another faction, you can't really take anything from them because it's all hidden away. So there will be some rebalancing around shulker boxes, ender chests, and there just won't be a /f chest. So there is some secure storage in the yield stack. So if you've claimed a chunk that doesn't have any yields, you can just use that. Or if it's quite a slow yield, it doesn't really matter. Like I could put some stuff in here, and that's not accessible by anyone until the claim is broken. So you've got secure storage, but you haven't got storage that's accessible anywhere. And I say secure as in that's secure until somebody makes a. No, I can't do that because I'm part of this faction. Until somebody makes a siege and is successful. So nothing's fully secure, and I think that's good. I don't think it's good at all to have ender chests and shulker boxes running rampant. And I know about the trick with the storage drawers as well, sealing those up and putting those in ender chests. So yeah, I want to make sure there's some sort of tweak there to disallow just shoving everything in. Limits on what you can place in ender chests, or yeah, something like that. That is the other thing that's the other major thing that I'm considering for the server. But other than that, the server is going to be much the same, but with just with some sort of balance tweaks, taking out some of the fluff as well. So it's a little bit of a lighter mod pack. That's the general idea. Those chickens weren't there before, were they? I'm going mad. Yeah. I think we can leave it there. I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to show off today. So yeah, have a good one, everyone, and I'll see you next time. Ta-ra!